reporting there, and that's it for the business. Thanks very much to Stephen Carroll. Coming up, our press review. It's time now for a look through the French papers, which I'm joined by Nicholas Rushworth. Hello to you, Nick. We're starting off, as you'd expect, with the Syria crisis, which continues to dominate at the G20.
Hi to you, Chris, and hi to everybody. I'm going to start out with Libération, which is leading La Guerre des Positions. There, I can show that to you, Chris, there, the headline. Of course, we've seen in the press in France this week, La Guerre Froide, the Cold War. This is La Guerre des Positions, of course, as each country, basically at the G20, outlines its position in terms of what to do about Syria. Now, Libération is saying that what is happening is Hollande and Obama are finding themselves increasingly isolated. The question that is emerging is, so what happens after any strikes? What do you do then? Have you thought about that? The editorial of Libération this Friday is saying that the two leaders, if they do reflect on this and can give some clearer answers about what would happen after any military strike, then they would be more credible and less isolated. Libération is saying in that editorial, well, the two men, Obama and Hollande, must really make it very clear that they will be pioneering and spearheading a peaceful transition in Syria, a negotiated solution after any strike.
Meanwhile, Le Figaro, the centre-right daily, focusing on Hollande's isolation within Europe, as they claim.
Well, here we've got that headline there, Les Européens lâchent François Hollande. Now, of course, that means they're abandoning him. Les Européens, that's the Europeans. In France, of course, when they say Europeans, they often mean the European Union and Brussels. This is to do with Herman Van Rompuy, who has rejected the use of force and aligned himself with the German position, which is one of reticence, of course. Le Figaro also, in its inside pages, looking more closely at the isolation that Hollande is feeling. I found this in the middle of the piece about this trip to the G20 in St. Petersburg. He wanted to organise a mini summit, Chris, between London, Paris, Berlin, Rome and Brussels. He wanted that to really hammer out some kind of coherent European position. All that could be managed was a chat on the bus on the way to the dinner at the G20 meeting. So that's how these summit meetings work, and that kind of insight into the realities of diplomacy, of course.
Meanwhile, Syria, aside a recurring problem here in France, is the Marseille crime wave.
Well, this is the top story for Aujourd'hui en France, Le Parisien. There you can see Journée Noire à Marseille, Black Day in Marseille. What's this to do with? It's the 15th gangland killing this year. And it's not just anybody, it's the son of the sporting director of Olympique Marseille, of all people. So that, of course, reinforces this whole image perhaps Marseille has internationally of being that French connection city. Remember that movie in the 70s? But also it's a big headache for the government, a real bugbear. Manuel Valls in the cartoon in Aujourd'hui en France this Friday is chatting with François Hollande. There you can see the cartoon, Chris, and he's saying, come on, long live the day when I'm Prime Minister. Of course, he's very ambitious, and that way I don't have to deal with all these crime issues. And Hollande there looking stony-faced, one of his other faces that we've heard so much about this week.
An ambitious interior minister in France, who'd have thought it? Okay, finally, from Marseille to Paris, city of love, and one expression of that romance could be dragging the city down.
Well, this is an extraordinary story. I couldn't believe it when I saw this. That it's in Le Figaro and also Le Parisien, but it's the whole. I don't know if you've been, but lots of people perhaps not have been to Le Pont des Arts in the centre of Paris, which is
covered in padlocks.
Yeah, covered in love padlocks. People go to the bridge and they put on a padlock and they're couples and they say, love from a Romeo to Juliet or whatever it is. And now the sheer weight, look at that, of the number of it is threatening the bridges. The papers are saying here in France, and I thought, well, no, surely not. It's just must be half a ton of metal, and the bridge can stand that. But what's happening is that, in fact, the railings, in fact, are being really threatened. They're not crumbling, but they're weakening. And so there's a threat that, of course, people, as they put their padlock of love, will find themselves perhaps sinking into the Seine, which is a bit worrying for that.
That's just hard-headed science, unfortunately. Nicholas Rushworth, thank you very much for that roundup of the French press. Do stay with us here on Live from Paris. More news coming up very shortly.